What's the story about you?
I don't really have any stories.
What do you mean? Everyone's got a story.
Hollywood's making fewer and fewer films, and if you want films to be successful, they need to either have underlying material, whether it's a book series or whether it's a comic book or whether it's some sort of other, television show which is being repurposed into a feature film, and then they all need to be kind of high concept. And the high concept theatrics of this movie is that it's just honest and real, and it's grounded, and it's the emotion which is obviously kind of the big hook of this film, and the fact that it doesn't present teenagers as anything other than who they are.
Background, and action.
The book was an honest portrayal of the emotional complexity of being a teenager. There were no witches, vampires, wizards. It reminded me of the teenage movies I grew up on that didn't sugarcoat how tough it is to be a teenager.
You think beauty's in like some classroom or some textbook or something, and it's not. That's not what it's about. This right here, this is beautiful.
When you do a book adaptation and it's a book that you really love, the toughest thing is to figure out how to retain the voice of the book and to protect it so that the visual hits you the same way that the reading experience hit you. This book is terrific. It's written from the point of view of the character.
I think it's good to have dreams, don't you?
To dreams.
Dreams.
Stories don't always come from one place, but I can tell you one thing that was a kernel of an idea, and that was a story a friend of mine told me about one of his high school friends that would come home at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and fix up a pitcher of martinis. And I thought, that's cool, that's kind of sophisticated for a high school kid, but at the same time there had to be some kind of angst behind that would cause that. So that conflict and that cool together made the idea that was worth exploring a little bit more. Then when I found the voice for Sutter Keeley, which was this really impossibly upbeat guy that had this dark underside to him, that friction between those two things really got the ball rolling for me.
That's actually a fun story because I did it this time.
The experience of watching a movie is obviously very different than reading a book. There were so many parts of the book we connected with that I thought were honest, emotional, funny. We wanted to keep as many of them as possible. At the same time, books tend to be very internal. So how do you take such an internal experience of reading a book and being inside a character's head and visually bring that to life? That's where the college essay came into play. It was a great way to learn a lot about a character in a fun, visual way.
Dear Dean of Admissions, my name is Sutter Keeley.
When I started reading the script, I wasn't quite sure for about the first 10 pages how I felt about Sutter, about the main character. I wasn't sure if he was someone that I was gonna love or if he was just this kind of cocky, know-it-all guy. And then sort of he falls on his face, sort of literally and figuratively, and from there on out, it was just the quickest read I've maybe ever had, and I laughed like crazy. It broke my heart, and it really just reminded me completely of my experience in high school.
I went through this every time with every financier and every studio. Everyone looked at me and said, it is a brilliant, brilliant script, but this is not the kind of movie that we make anymore. And so best of luck to you. I really want to see it when it's in theaters. I hope you make it. And it was really, really frustrating and tragic, and there were many dark nights when I wanted to give up on it. And thank God Andrew Lauren came along and just kind of took a leap of faith with all of us.
I grew up with films from the 80s, the John Hughes movies, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And this movie had a lot of the charm and the coming of age sort of teenage love story feel that those movies had. But what I think that this has that's very different is it's more raw, more honest. It goes against stereotype. Characters are less caricature-esque. And it had a true honesty that I think in this day and age is relevant to what's going on in society.
And I think you're just, when you get it, tell me, like, wait, really? You know what I mean? Like, there's a part of you that's excited, a little angry.
Miles, for me, was
the one person that I just thought could play that part, and it was hard for me to quite see anyone else playing it as well as him.
James met with Miles, and I think they went out and they had beers. And he called me right after he left Miles and said, "That's our guy." He said, "I don't even need to audition the guy. He's our guy. He's Sutter." And so I said to James, "Well, okay, listen, we'll back your play here. If you believe he's your guy, then let's go for that."
You're awesome. Enjoy being who you are. Live in the now. Embrace that shit.
Miles has this very relatable everyman quality, but he's profoundly intelligent and funny and gentle and compassionate. Whether you're growing up in the middle of America or in a city, I think everybody kind of knows a guy like Miles, who's like Sutter or Miles as Sutter. This guy who wants to make people smile, wants to be a good time for everyone, wants to make sure that everyone's happy, but sort of is endlessly sort of putting focus and attention on other people, almost deflecting from himself, to hide from the fact that he's actually sad. And when I look at Miles, he possesses this core of sadness. He can actually really, really break your heart, but also make you laugh like nobody's business.
This is a difficult part for me. I've been one on a call sheet before, and I've kind of been the lead in a movie, but I've never been in every single scene of a movie, and that's a challenge. The first few days of production, I felt I was having a hard time just focusing on the scenes, because when you first start out a film, you almost want to tell the entire story in the first few days. And you can't do that. You really just kind of have to go beat by beat and take the moments as they come. So I kind of had to get into a groove with that.
You are the most selfish person that I've ever met in my entire life.
You're not understanding what I'm saying.
It was funny because Miles said to me at one point, he said, "I know that every young actor came in for this role, and a lot of my buddies and friends have come in for this role, and when they see the film, if I don't nail it, they're going to kill me." So he even felt this weird pressure on him to actually do the role justice.
Yeah. Sutter's complicated, I think. I think everyone's complicated, especially in high school. A lot of stuff's going on in your life. You're starting to get to know yourself as a person. Everything is magnified. Everything's much more important. And yeah, and this script allows for Sutter, for you to see a lot of his flaws and a lot of these other characters. We're really blessed with a great script.
He's such a compelling character, and you really feel for him, and it's very rare to see someone who's so flawed. And often when you see someone who's so flawed in a movie or a television show or a novel about a 17-year-old, they're really only one or the other. They're the hero or they're extremely flawed characters. And this was somebody who kind of walked the line, and that was very interesting to me.
Just call me. Awesome.
For Amy, I wanted a character that would be a more pure form of Sutter's ultimate feelings of not being a guy that can be loved. Here she was someone that was obvious she felt like no one was going to love her. And so for Sutter to find someone like that and try to help her, he's actually trying to help himself.
You're 17 years old. You don't have an ex-boyfriend?
No.
Really?
Sutter, guys don't look at
That's
me like
shocking.
that.
Yeah, absolutely, guys look at you like that.
No.
I just saw two guys looking at you like that.
I wanted to bring to light a character who was not a stereotypical shy girl. She's not shy. She's not nervous to be around people. She's just somebody who has decided to keep to herself because she doesn't necessarily feel that what she says is going to be well received around her. So I thought that was really cool to kind of show the other side to the stereotype. I'm Amy. Amy Finnicky.
That's what I was going to say. Nice to meet you, Amy.
Nice to meet you. Why aren't you guys dancing?
Yeah, we're going to get out there next song.
Come on, it's prom. Amy, dance with me.
Oh, no, I'm good. I don't really dance.
And then on the other side with Cassidy, she was more the girl that you would expect Sutter to go for. She's self-confident. She's really her own person. And so this is the kind of girlfriend Sutter would naturally gravitate towards, but would usually be dumped by the end.
You'll always be my favorite ex-boyfriend.
Sutter's mom and Sutter's dad were probably two of the hardest roles we cast because we wanted really phenomenally grounded actors. And the roles are incredibly important to the energy of the movie, but they're very small roles. And so a lot of times when you go out to kind of bigger stars, they want, if they're going to do an independent film, they're going to want to be the lead of an independent film. And we had to kind of say to them, you're not the lead, but your roles are incredibly important to the turning points and the access points of this film. And so Jennifer Jason Leigh, and kind of this odd homage to Fast Times at Ridgemont High, we got really lucky.
I love you so much, it hurts. It hurts me how much I love you.
I was surprised by it. I loved that the hero was so endearing and yet so flawed. That you cared about him even though he was making a lot of big mistakes. It takes you on a familiar path, but in a very unfamiliar way.
Listen to me, that man has never loved anyone but himself. His heart is this big.
I guess you could say I wasn't cut out to be a family man, not in the traditional sense. I did some things that I'm not proud of.
Kyle took what was on the page and made it so much more specific and strange, and you feel an entire life behind the whatever 10 or 12 pages I think that he's actually in the script physically. You feel the shadow of him over the whole story. When you meet him, he really is full, and the audience suddenly, it is like a sort of record, you know, the needle coming off a record, and that scratching moment where you can't take your eyes off and you're totally riveted, and you just wonder what has happened to this charismatic but damaged and haunted man.
I line so okay here, should I pretend? Pretend.
The character scared me a little bit. I was bothered by the material because I didn't know how to play it. I had no clue as to how to see your son after 10 years who you've not seen and say hello to him and at the same time want to get rid of him. And that was one of the main reasons that I almost had to take this role, is because I was so damn scared of it. And actors will know what I'm talking about, because usually we get comfortable and say, no, I can't do that. But I had to.
Yeah.
Hey. Dad. It's Sutter.
Oh, shit, of course. You, oh, man, look at you, of course. You're taller than I am.
Kyle Chandler, he embodied that role with so much authenticity, and he called me after he finished the movie, and he said, I don't know what the hell I just did, but if you cut me out of the movie, I'm okay with that. And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, I don't know what I was doing back there on set. He goes, I don't know if any of that stuff was usable.
But I'll tell you something, I don't live in the past, I live in the now, because that's what it's all about. Do you understand that?
When you cast actors as brilliant as Kyle Chandler, Jennifer Jason Leigh, or Miles, or Shailene, or Brie, or any of them, you're really cutting yourself off at the knees to then micromanage a performance. Or rather, I see it sort of as a game of ping pong, like the relationship between a script and an actor and a director, which is to say, the first inspiration for that actor isn't some highfalutin director, it's the script. That script should plant a seed in the actor's mind, and they have ideas, not of how they're going to say the black on the page, but how they're going to inhabit the white space. And if they're a great actor, they have a wonderful imagination, just like a great production designer, cinematographer, or composer. So for me, I always want to see what that script has inspired in the actors first before I jump in and start moving them around. It was important for us to make a story that felt that it could take place out of time and to really take it seriously. So for me, film and the grain and the sensuality of film was very important for this story. And to make it widescreen was something that was really, really important. To give them an environment, but to make their world feel big and not small. To maximize it and not minimize it. And to give them a world to play in and to explore. And I think a lot of what people have talked about when they talk about the naturalism of the film is that tricky mix of both anamorphic 35 is one of the most cinematic formats we can go with, but it also gives room for an actor to play and be real.
I suppose if I was your father, this is where I might give you a lecture or something, about what you're doing to yourself.
Well, you know what, Dan, if you were my dad, you wouldn't have to.
When I came onto the project, James had already decided that he wanted to shoot on 35mm and in anamorphic. And that was kind of one of the first things he said to me in the conversation. And that immediately was like, wow, okay, this is a director with some vision, because, it's really, in that budget range to kind of really try and shoot on film now, let alone anamorphic film, is a kind of huge challenge. And most people are just not that committed to kind of see that through, really. Even if it's like a lot of directors might start with that ambition, you know, by the time they've, you know, presented the figures and it's been through a line producer and, you know, everyone else involved, it's very hard to justify. But James was absolutely, this movie is going to be shot on film, and I want a frame for 240.
This was a story that was small and contained, but it needed to feel bigger. And the films, when they reference films like Last Picture Show, those were big, those were epic, the scale. And so, you know, I think anyone who had any concern about that, once we got on the set and saw the beauty of Jess's shots and looked at what we had, I think that our minds were quickly changed. It is more expensive, but I think it brings a level of dynamism to the film that makes it spectacular.
That's a cut.
We wanted the skin quality to have a real texture to it. You know, it was these kind of young people, you know, the skin is sort of alive, you know, it's like it has a life to it. You know, there's the imperfections, you know, James didn't want to work with makeup, he wanted them to be, you know, to look very natural, and I think that was a big decision in the way the film looks. It meant that they had to be lit very carefully, but we kind of embraced the imperfections, and that was kind of a beautiful thing, I think.
So sorry, Amy.
Sutter, stop.
Okay.
It's okay. I know. It's okay.
It was clear that we didn't need to shoot like, you know, a wide shot, a two shot, you know, a medium close-up and a close-up over for every scene. It was going to be, you know, a wide shot that developed into a medium shot and possibly even developed into a close-up, or went through, you know, a wide shot into a two shot, which would be the scene. And really that we were looking for the kind of definitive shot which told the story in the most powerful way and not, you know, a lot of options.
James and I were very much on the same page that we wanted this to be a movie that breathed more with the tempo of real life, and in which the characters sort of thought about what they said and before they said it, and they were characters who listened to each other. My first cut was about 2 hours and 20 minutes long, which James and I agreed was going to be far too long a movie to release. And so we had the challenge of how do we take all of this story, because that first cut included all of the scenes that had been in the script, and get it down to a running time that, you know, that people will want to see. It was the best kind of problem to have because there was so much good material.
And background, and action!
So it's really about a great team that you're working with and people that know what they're doing, but people that are passionate and have conviction, and it's the integrity of the script. It's, you know, that's really key for me. I don't make many films, but when I do, I really want to find something that has something to say, where it stays with you.
All of the real surprises, I think, of the story and the process of making the film were what any filmmaker, I think, reaps when they work with really good people who are artists. Like, I mean, the actors were as good as I hoped they would be, and then way better and way more specific, and made choices that if I had been holding their hand or, like, you know, micromanaging the entire time, they never would have had an opportunity to do what they did to make these things distinctly. I mean, that is a Miles Teller interpretation of Sutter Keeley and a Shailene Woodley interpretation of Amy Finicki, and they are playing characters, and they're bringing themselves as people and as actors, but they're also making choices based on that script, which really is what inspired them.
Cut.
I love the idea of independence. Independent features and stories where you get people that there's a feeling on the set, there's a feeling where everyone has ownership, if you will.
Where's he now, your dad?
He's an airline pilot.
Really?
Yeah, he flies all across the country.
Sutter, that's awesome.
Dude, he is awesome.
I love stories about this age group, kind of young people trying to figure out who they are, worried about their future, trying to decide if who they are at 17 is who they're going to be. It's very rare that you read a novel about this age group where the characters are so human.
Stop. And action.
Hollywood stopped making real high school movies a long time ago, and that's squarely what we're aiming for. There are no metaphors here, and there's no heightened high school hijinks either.
There's no werewolves, there's no dancing werewolves, there's no vampires. Although I do consider myself a heartthrob.
This movie could be one of the first coming-of-age films of this generation that accurately depicts what it's like to be a teenager. This movie doesn't dumb teenagers down, and I find that a lot of films nowadays do.
I love these people. I do. I love these people. I love you all.
When I watch the actors reading the lines and being the characters, some of those same feelings that I felt towards Amy and Sutter and Cassidy come back to me again. Some of the sympathy I felt, especially for Amy in some of the scenes I've watched being shot, really moved me again.
These people are artists, and they really created lives, and there was so much story in the detail far beyond the 95 minutes of the movie. And I guess I was just sort of in awe of working with really talented people and feeling like I had a little bit to do with it, but mostly like I was just thrilled to be able to collaborate with brilliant people. I felt like I was, you know, in the presence of real lives. And I guess the best thing I can say sort of about the film is that it reminds me in a profound way, even though I know the way the sausage was made, so to speak, it reminds me of my adolescence in a way that is both incredibly specific, but in a way that I think is universal. And I'm just really proud of the film, proud that I got to be a part of it.